Peace, peace, peace. What it is, it's your brother Tyvon Swain L, aka the Orthodox Moor. And first and foremost, I'd like to say happy holy day to all the Muslims out there. Peace and salam alaikum. As you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about some A.D.O.S stuff. And I'm going to be dropping my perspective on it because I think it's a really interesting concept, a really interesting movement. And a really interesting awakening to consciousness in terms of having a conversation. I am a Moorish American Muslim of Israelite descent. I partially descend from Israelites, and on another side, well, both sides, the type of Israelite that I am is Maghribim, and so that side goes back to the Moorish Empire as well, Moroccan Empire as well. But on my other side, I consider myself Moorish and going back to the empire as well. And so I wanted to give my breakdown in terms of how I see the A.D.O.S movement as someone who considers themselves Moorish. And not just Moorish by nationality, but also someone who considers noble duality a prophet. First and foremost, I want to say that the A.D.O.S movement, shout out to it for the fact that it's starting a conversation on what should we call ourselves. I dig that all day. I also like the fact that it's getting people considering the concept of reparations, etc., etc., etc. Like really focusing on how we should address ourselves as people of African descent who descend from people who went through the slave trade in America. And what should we be doing in terms of coming together as those people of that same descent? That's a very important conversation, extremely important conversation that needs to be had and couldn't be had soon enough. I personally do not subscribe to the A.D.O.S movement based upon some of its tenets and whatnot. And that, for me, that has to do with some religious issues real quick. And you know what? I'd like to point those out just to start the whole thing. So let me go ahead and share my screen and break some stuff down. So let me say, I do consider myself A.D.O.S, like in a funny pun of the whole thing. Like, I consider myself an Asiatic descent of slavery, right? But I don't consider that like an identifier or my nationality or a name. That's not a name I would take to court. That's not a name I would try to sue under. That's not a name I would try to seek reparations or restitution or any kind of, I would seek any kind of bereavement from, or any kind of a redress from bereavement, any way, shape, or form. Not that I don't agree in attempting those things. I just don't agree with attempting those things with that identifier. I'm gonna break that down in multiple ways. But first, I want to break down a concept that I disagree with concerning the current form of A.D.O.S, and that's this disassociation from other peoples who went through the same slave trade who are in different parts of the Americas. That's a little bit off to me. I would, for instance, let's say we got people from Haiti or Jamaica or something like that, right? And let's say they immigrate to America and the A.D.O.S concept is already set up. Now, I could understand someone saying that they shouldn't have a top tier status in A.D.O.S, being that they're from another country within the American diaspora of descendants of slaves. But to say that they deserve nothing, or they deserve no recognition in terms of having gone through the same slave trade, to me that's off-putting, and that's got that Willie Lynch letter concept to me, to where we're drawing lines that aren't necessary, that create division that's unnecessary. To me, it makes more sense to be reaching out to our Jamaican homies, to reaching out to our Haitian homies, etc., and be like, look, man, this is how y'all should be getting your, like, for instance, like with the Jamaicans, this is how you should be getting your redress from the Queen. You know what I'm saying? not only that, like this is how we should be helping each other in terms of dealing with the potential reparations, because you know what, in the Americas, it wasn't just one group of people that dealt with the slave trade. It was a multitude of people, multitude of nations. Like, so we got the English, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish, etc., African nations, etc., right? So it's actually more behoove on us to have a group conversation than a singular conversation, in a sense that if there's more of us talking about the same conversation and trying to go get the same treatment from the same people, like we're going to get a better deal. Like it's going to be way easier. Like if as Americans and or people from the U.S. and as people from Jamaica, from people from Haiti, etc., we're all collectively going to these different nations saying, hey, pony up. You know what I'm saying? That makes way more sense. And it makes way more sense to understand that and then be like, check this out. If, let's say I'm from the U.S. and I go to Jamaica or Haiti, okay, we got this same A.D.O.S concept. I'm gonna say A.D.O.S just with the air quotes, just so people get the concept of like what I mean by like a unified identifier. Let's just say it like that. We got this A.D.O.S concept of what we're dealing with. And let's say you coming from the U.S. to Jamaica, okay. Being that we've helped each other out, we got this common understanding. We've gone to the Queen together in these other countries, blah blah blah, whoop-de-woo. As a U.S. citizen, when I come to Jamaica, if I immigrate there, I don't get the top tier status in whatever system you have set up with your particular form of A.D.O.S, but I get a second tier form of status, right? So where like I get some benefit from it, but I don't get the full level of it, right? But I get some recognition that we went through the same thing together. Like we're still family on that. Like, and I'm making full recognition. Like, okay, being that this is Jamaica, like the people who went through it and descend from it specifically here should be on top in terms of how it's dealt with. And being that I don't descend specifically from this Jamaican part of it, I shouldn't get the same thing, because maybe people here in Jamaica have experienced different atrocities that I didn't experience, etc. And they need to be specifically dealt with in a particular manner that I don't need to get dealt with. Vice versa, if a Jamaican or Haitian, etc., comes to the U.S., they should also get some kind of secondary status with it, right? In the sense of they went through the same situation, they got here the same way, or they got treated this, they got hit with the same chattel slavery, right? But again, secondary status being the fact that there's different forms of how it was taken in Jamaica and America, in different ways and different effects it had on the people there. So the specific effects that it had on the people that experienced it firsthand in that country should definitely be top tier with it, 100%. But again, it's off-putting to me that people try to differentiate and be like, okay, but we're not connected to anyone else that went through that. That makes no sense, because bottom line, the concept is there's strength in numbers. And if we went through the same atrocity, the same basic atrocity to start with, right, the slave trade and chattel slavery, why not try to just unify on that one bit, period, just to start a conversation internationally in the Americas, in our diaspora? That to me that would seem to be the first order of business, is to go out making that beacon call, like, hey, we all went through this together. Let's have a conversation about starting from there. Versus like, oh no, you can't have a piece of my pie. This is my cut. Blah, 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 blah. Down, down, down. Mine. On that crab Negro stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not vibing that. I'm not vibing that at all. But I'm also going to show you some reasons why I don't vibe it in terms of a religious reason. Like, so again, I'm not saying everyone else has to uphold the scripture. As a Moorish American Muslim, I uphold the Circle 7 Quran, or the Everlasting Gospel, however you choose to look at it. I'm going to share my screen. Quick. I'm going to break a couple of things down from this. This is the Circle 7. It says, by the guiding of his Father, God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from the sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his Father, God Allah. So this is gonna be like my Friday measure for all my Muslims, my Moorish American Muslims out there. This is my holy day measure. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna start off with just that part that I'm talking about right now, in terms of like why I don't vibe the the disassociation from other people, right? So in the Moorish American concept, we consider ourselves African. We also consider ourselves Asiatic, etc. Right? And we say our people. When we say Asiatic nations, we're talking about our people. The Asiatic nations of North America, or excuse me, the Asiatic nations of North, South, and Central America. The Moorish Americans and Mexicans of North America, Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America, Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador in Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims, right? So we consider all these people in the Americas, in this group right here, like we're talking the same stuff here. And when you look at North America, how this is described, like you got to understand, North America, like on a map, consists of the Caribbeans. It consists of Canada, and it consists of the U.S. Right, and it also consists of Mexico. But it tells you anyway. Again, so Mexico, Canada, North America, the U.S., the Caribbean islands, the U.S. islands, the U.S. territory. So this includes Puerto Rico. You see what I'm saying? Like all of them are the same people in our tradition. And not only are they the same people, they've gone through the same situation. Right? So I'm gonna go back into this whole Negro, black, and colored thing, right? I'm going to start probably way too far up than I should. I'm gonna start at Divine Instruction 9, chapter 47, which is Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. And it stipulates, according to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan, what your ancient forefathers were. Now we're going to beef on this concept, right? A lot of us are going to disagree on this concept, but let's look at this Canaanite nation concept as shout out to the ROC, the Rise of the Canaanites out there on the Solar Vision Debate League and SVDL Classics, SVDL Live, etc. We talk a lot about the concept of Canaanite being like an epithet for like an imperial concept, where like we can have many nations fitting under one banner, like how the Roman aspect was of many different nations being under the Roman Empire. They were all Roman citizens. Even you could be a Germanic Roman citizen. You could be from Hispania. You could be from Mauritania, etc. But you were still a Roman. All different nations within that, right? So in the Moorish Temple of America, we talk a lot about empires and whatnot. We talk a lot about, you know what? I'm just going to read this whole chapter and just break this whole thing down. The inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family were second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of the Mexican, the first true and divine name of Africa. The dividing of the land between the father and son, the son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest, was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the Pharaoh of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan, seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before the great earthquake, which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and it extends eastward from the Nile River westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today, without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from the descent nature of his fathers, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. These holy and divine laws are from the Prophet Noble Drali, where the founder of the Uniting of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The time has come that every nation must worship under his own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess his own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honored not the created principles of their forefathers. That right there is something, family, we're about to get into quite a bit in forthcoming shows. Not this one here, but in forthcoming shows. But this is what I really want to jump down to and get into. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America, who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mothers and of their mother and father, and straight after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. Now, for many in the Moorish Science Temple of America, this concept of straying after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing, is a concept that they know very well. And I'm going to translate that to people who aren't in the temple, and for people who don't even have a religious concept to, right? Bottom line is, it's selling out where you come from. Bottom line is, it's selling out where you come from. And so, hold up. Wow. Where'd I go? Oh, thank God. There we go. So this concept of selling out where you come from, it's this concept of and how we talk about it is not identifying with the nation that you descend from. Not identifying with the nation that you descend from. And so this is also why I further want to talk about the whole split in how the A.D.O.S movement speaks about their concepts, because we can all take DNA tests and we can see, like, for instance, that we'll share descent nature, or we'll share DNA with people who are in Jamaica and people who are in Haiti and in Puerto Rico and other places in the Americas. We can see that's what that is. So if we come from the same tribe, right, or we come from the same people and whatnot, why draw these imaginary lines of, you know what, being like, let's say I'm of Yoruba descent and I'm in West Virginia, and I'm of Yoruba descent, and and there's someone else who's of Yoruba descent who's in Jamaica, right? Why does it make sense for us to beef over, oh no, you can't have access to none of the reparations we get here and all this type of stuff because you didn't go through stuff? Nah, fam, what you talking about? Y'all both went through this. Y'all both went through the same ish. You just watched it. You got to different shores. You went through the same ma'afa. The same ma'afa swept you both up. And because you're Yoruba in West Virginia and another Yoruba in Jamaica, you can't be cool with this now. You can't attack this whole thing together. Nah, that don't make sense. So that's an aspect of this where I'm trying to get people to understand, like, you can be selling out where you come from and not really understand how you're doing it in this whole bit, because, like, you're drawing lines in the sand that aren't necessary. Are not necessary. That's the first bit. My second bit is this whole bit of even if I identify as A.D.O.S, and let's say I'm cool with all the tenets thereof, how am I actually identifying with my government, with the United States government? What am I identifying as? If I go fill out the census in 2020, where does A.D.O.S fall? Where does that fall? So most people are like, oh, well, that's black. Okay. Is that what we're doing? Is that what that is? Is that the thing? Because last time I checked, Black people in this country aren't actually people in this country. Like, everyone else has constitutional rights. I see black people fighting for civil rights like they're the LGBTQ, like LGBT or transgender people, like civil rights. I don't see any other community having to fight for civil rights. None whatsoever. I mean, maybe that's because, like, you know, let me look this up real quick. We all know about the Dred Scott case, right? The infamous Dred Scott case. Let me pull this up real quick. Share my screen once again. We all know about the infamous Dred Scott case, where it was stipulated that no black man had any rights in this country that any white man had to respect. That no black man in this country had any rights in this country that a white man had to respect. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, why are you talking about this? This is obviously some racist stuff. Is it? Is the Dred Scott case based on skin tone? Is it based upon the fact that he's African descent or a descendant of slaves, etc.? Is it based upon that? I'm going to tell you no, flat out. I'm going to tell you white and black have nothing to do with skin tone whatsoever. Whatsoever. How do I know? There's laws pertaining to this stuff. There's naturalization acts. There's the Free Sundry Moors, the Free Sundry Moors Act. You know what I'm saying? There's treaties. There's people being treated. There's people being treated like they're not black people who are of African descent in this country. There's people on the first census. There's people on the first census. Hold on real quick. You know what I'm saying? There's people on the first census of African descent, 1790, who are what you would call legally white. All legally white means is, let me bring this up real quick. I haven't looked this up in a long time. I'm freestyling right now. 1790. Bam. Let me see if I can actually get the text of this joint. Nope. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds, family. People love to hide the text, and it's not a long act. This is like some short stuff. Bam. Here we go. Federal naturalization laws of 1790 and 1795. Bam. I'm gonna read. Here's right here. This is 1790 right here. United States Congress, an act to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, March 26, 1790. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States. Let me blow this up so people can read this easier. They're looking on the screen. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled that any alien being a free white person who shall have resided within limits and under the jurisdiction of the United States for the term of 2 years may be admitted to become a citizen thereof on application to any common law court of record in any one of the states wherein he shall have resided for the term of 1 year at least, and making proof to the satisfaction of such court that he is a person of good character, and taking the oath of affirmation prescribed by law to support the Constitution of the United States, which oath of or affirmation such court shall administer, and the clerk of such court shall record such application and the proceedings thereon. And thereupon such person shall be considered as a citizen of the United States. And the children of such person, so naturalized, dwelling within the United States, being under the age of 21 years at the time of such naturalization, shall be considered as citizens of the United States. and the children of citizens of the United States that may be born beyond sea or out of the limits of the United States shall be considered as natural born citizens. Now that's the term right there, natural born citizens. Right, and the children, I'm going to go real slow from this part on. And the children of the citizens of the United States that may be born beyond sea or out of the limits of the United States shall be considered as natural born citizens, provided that the right of citizenship shall not descend to persons whose fathers have never been resident in the United States, provided also that no person heretofore prescribed by any state shall be admitted a citizen as aforesaid, except by an act of the legislature of the state in which such person was prescribed. So if you're naturalized, you yourself aren't considered a natural born citizen, but your descendants are. The people that come after you are considered natural born. Now, what does that mean? At this juncture, in this juncture in history, and as of now, you have to be a natural born citizen to be the president of the United States. So what this is telling you here is that a free white person and a natural born citizen are the same thing. Now, I just diverged real quick. I'm gonna break this down about the whole citizenship thing, right? So a naturalized citizen, let's say someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right, came in from Austria, right? He cannot be the president. He is not a natural born citizen. He is a naturalized citizen. There's limitations on that. President Obama, he was a natural born citizen. He was able to be eligible to become president. Now, peep gang. If both of his parents claimed to be black, had no nationalities, etc., he wouldn't have, or let's say both of his parents would have been Kenyan, right? They would have had to naturalize as citizens. Then they would have a choice to make as to how they registered, which would affect this next part. If he was born before they naturalized, he wouldn't be natural born. He would have to be born after they naturalized to be natural born. One of his parents was a natural born citizen. Hence, Obama was able to be eligible to become a natural born citizen. Now, the one that was eligible to be, the one that was an American citizen, on her paperwork, it says white. Oh, but she's Irish. This, that. Oh, no. Check this out. I love doing this to people right here. Go peep this. The Irish weren't always white in this country. One more time. The Irish were not always white in this country. Just go check this. Go check out this book right here. How the Irish Became White by Noel Ignatieff. The Irish were not always. Oh, look where it starts, right? Let's go to the table of contents on this, right? Let me see if I can go into the first few pages. I don't want to let me go deep enough, I don't think. When you get into the book, it starts getting into the Naturalization Acts and whatnot. Starts breaking down free white people, all the type of stuff, right? Again, the Irish weren't always white. Obama's so-called white mother wasn't always considered white in this country. Let's check out the legal definition of what this means. I'm gonna show you. Most people talk about Moor's and Black's Law Dictionary. I don't deal with Black's Law Dictionary. I deal with Bovier's Law Dictionary, because Bovier's Law Dictionary was the dictionary that was applied to the Constitution, specifically adapted to the here you go, adapted to the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and of the several states of the American Union. I can't use Black's Law to define constitutional terms. I have to use a Constitutional Law Dictionary for that. So when I go to the Constitutional Law Dictionary, real quick. on the other one? Oh, white persons. There we go. I was looking for free white persons. I forgot it's white persons here. Excuse me, family. Bam. White persons. The act of Congress which authorized the naturalization of aliens confined the description of what such aliens to free white persons. This, of course, excludes the African race when pure, but it is not easy to say what shade of color or mixture of blood will make a white person. And so remember what I was reading about the Naturalization Act about how the states can do certain things with the stuff? Look at what it says here. The Constitution of Pennsylvania, as amended, confines the right of citizenship to free white persons. And these words, white persons or similar words, are used in most of the constitutions of the southern states in describing electors. Now watch this. Read this real slow right here. This, of course, excludes the African race when pure. But it is not easy to say what shade of color or mixture of blood will make a white person. Real slow. African race when pure, but not what shade or color. Like, so again, I could be this says right here, I could be blue black and still be legally white. Blue black and still be legally white. People get caught on this bit like, oh, you got to be mixed to be. No, it says right here, it don't matter what shade of the color of skin. It's not easy to say. Why is it not easy to say? And what is a pure African race? What is that? What is that even? What is that? What's that concept? How is it legally understood in our law? Let's do it like this. Federal Directive 15. So if I'm gonna actually identify A.D.O.S with something on the census, I got to pick something off of Federal Directive 15. And when it comes to white and black, peep game. Black, a person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. There's that African racial concept again. And look at what it says here, black. Oh, interesting. Interesting. That Dred Scott concept, right? All these people here are asking for civil rights here, not constitutional rights. They don't got the same rights as a so-called white person or a top-tier citizen or a natural-born citizen, which could be President Obama. Which is President Obama. Let's look what it says for white person. Now watch the difference in language. A black person has origins in no original people of Africa. One more time, real slow. Legally speaking, in our country, a black person by law has no origins in any original people of Africa. Think about that. So black is a modern construct that doesn't apply to any ancient people in Africa, legally speaking. Watch what it says about white. A white person, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, North Africa, or the Middle East. One more time. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, North Africa, or the Middle East. Now, we already know right off the top, the original people of Europe are the Grimaldi man. They're us. North Africa. This bit here, North Africa, Middle East. This legally right here, this covers the oldest human remains ever found. So the oldest Homo sapien bones we got are in North Africa, Morocco, and this Middle East bit, this North Africa, Middle East, this does cover parts of Ethiopia, etc. Like, so the Fertile Crescent, the Nile Valley, bruh, again, Egypt, North Africa. Between North Africa and the Middle East, you get the Nile Valley and you get the Fertile Crescent. And again, origins and original peoples of these areas. Black people, legally speaking, in this country, black does not mean you descend from any nation in Africa. It's a new concept. It is a new concept. It puts you outside of the political construct of this country. And it puts you in no origins of anywhere. A person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. Watch it. Look at how it's. Watch how many times it says origins in any of the original people. Watch this. American Indian or Alaskan Native. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of North America. Again, if that ain't us, I don't know who is. And who maintain cultural identification through tribal affiliation or community recognition. Watch this one. Asian or Pacific Islander. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, the Indian subcontinent, or the Pacific Islands. These areas include, for example, China, India, Japan, Korea, and the Philippine Islands and Samoa. Now check this out. Watch Hispanic and watch how this one plays out, right? A person of Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Central or South American, or other Spanish culture or origin. Culture or origin. You speak the language, all right? Or origin, regardless of race. Now, why is it saying that? Because when you look at the paperwork, it says now that you can be white Hispanic or black Hispanic. That you can be white Hispanic or black Hispanic. Watch how they're playing games with just these two right here. No origins and no original people nowhere. This just means you speak Spanish, my dude. The only people who have origins in any of the original people of Africa on the census are white. I'm gonna let that one sink in for a minute, and ask anybody watching, can y'all show me on this paperwork? Because this is what the federal government uses for us to identify with them. Where does A.D.O.S land on this? Is it black African? Is it white African? Is it African that has no standing in law, where I got to fight for civil rights, or is it African where I can be president of this country, where I can be a natural born citizen? So as a Moorish American Muslim, I put this down on my paperwork. When I proclaim my nationality through the temple, at that juncture, I am a retroactive natural born citizen. Now, is that the same thing as A.D.O.S? Is A.D.O.S saying that you're a retroactive natural born citizen? I'm not hearing that. I'm not so much hearing that. I'm hearing that they're concerned about what kind of group they get a check under, and not so much understanding the fact that, one, you're not even legally eligible for the check. Like if the Dred Scott case stands, you ain't even eligible for the check in this country as a black person. As a black person, you got no rights in this country that a white man is bound to respect. So as A.D.O.S, you can't even get none of that. It's a great conversation, but as far as legally speaking, you can't get none of that as that type of African. You got to be this kind of African. And before y'all start talking about, oh, white African, no. Watch this. Y'all already know about this. Real short. Rahman Ibrahim ibn SORI, right? So here's my man, West African nobleman and emir. Sub-Saharan West African, from Futa Jalon. Just so you understand, this is sub-Saharan West Africa, Futa Jalon. And you're going to give me the location? In Guinea, right? We'll do it like this. We put Guinea on the map. This is sub-Saharan. My man Abdul Rahman Ibrahim Ibn Sari, right? He gets caught up. He gets enslaved. He comes to the Americas. And when he comes to the Americas, it's found out that he can speak Arabic. It's found out that the slaves he's around are treating him like he's royalty, and therefore his slave owner gets kind of antsy, kind of concerned, because he thinks he has a Moor on his hands. And real quick, he's concerned about this because in 1790 there's this Free Sundries Moors Sundries Act of 1790, right? Also known as the Free Sundries Moors Act, right? Basically, let me break this down. On January 20th, 1790, a petition was presented by the South Carolina House of Representatives from a group of 4 individuals who were subjects of the Moroccan Empire and residents of the state. They desired that if they happened to commit any fault amenable to be brought to justice, that as subjects to a prince allied with the United States through the Moroccan-American Treaty of Friendship, they would be tried as citizens instead of under the Negro Act of 1740. Now let's break that one down. That they would be tried as citizens. Again, we saw that the citizens would have to be free white people, right? That they're not being treated as black people; they're being treated as white people because they're a different kind of African, in a sense to where they go back to the ancient peoples. They go back to the nations. They actually go back to people who got treaties and whatnot. This Negro Act, the Negro Act is these new people, these new black people, this new African race, this Negro race is a new. Their beginning starts at slavery. It starts at slavery. Let me see if they got the text of this joint. Let me get the text of this piece. Y'all got to see this. Let me get the text. Hold on, fam. No, that's not the whole thing. Oh, is it? Oh, I think this might be it right. Hold on, let me check. No, I think we got it there. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Sometimes archive.org is kind of janky. And check this out. Section 4, the Negro Act of 1740. The term Negro is confined to slave African. And they tell you who they're enslaving. They're enslaving the ancient Berbers. The term Negro is confined to slave Africans and their descendants. It does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa. So throughout our entire country's history, they're recognizing there's 2 groups of people in Africa. People they're enslaving and people they consider free. Now, both kind of change over time, but peep this out. Who are they saying is free at the time? Who are free Africans at the time? Free inhabitants of Africa, such as the Egyptians, the Moors, or the Negro Asiatics, such as the Lascars, etc. Right? So, hey, again, I'm Asiatic descent of slaves. You know what I'm saying to you? I ain't mad at you, but it still works with the free. See, again, that works with the free inhabitants of Africa. Now, I'm not saying don't be African. No, definitely. We're talking about being the free inhabitants of Africa. And understand this term Negro is it only applies to slave Africans. And so when we go back to this whole black bit, right? Again, when it says that you have origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa, this is what a black racial group in American law is. It's a slaved African, enslaved African. A black person is a descendant of an enslaved African, not a free inhabitant of Africa. Now, let's go back to my man over here. My man was enslaved, descendant of Africa, and was enslaved. An inhabitant of Africa was enslaved. And so they thought they had a Moor on their hands. And so they contacted the government based upon this treaty, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and on the Free Sounders, Moors Act, etc. Right? And so based upon the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, subjects of the Sultan of Morocco got to get released back to the Sultan, like on some diplomatic immunity type stuff, right? Diplomatic immunity, right? And so they get in contact with the consulate, the Moroccan consulate, etc. Come to find out, brother man Abdul Rahman Ibrahim Ibn Sari is not a Moor. He is not part of the empire. He's a Fulani, of Berber descent, etc. You know what I'm saying? Muslim, from Guinea, West Africa, right? But understanding the empirical concept of what a Moor is, because a Moor is not just relegated to the concept of Morocco. It's like it's a Roman concept, right? It's this concept like Canaanite, for instance. There's this whole like the Rock Nation. Shout out to y'all again one more time, right? This concept of being able to organize under an empirical name, right? He was like, oh, I can be from Guinea and also be a Moor? Yeah, got you. I'm Moorish now. And so as such, gets dealt with as such. And just like he was talking about that Free Sunday Wars Act, right? Going back this way. My people said, don't deal with me like the people in Negro Act of 1740. Treat me like a citizen. Treat me like a citizen. And as such, he was treated like not a Negro, my man Abdul Rahman. Not a Negro, but as a citizen, a free white person, as a free inhabitant of Africa. And was sent and didn't go back to Morocco. He didn't go back to the landmass of Morocco. He went back to Liberia, right? Again, this is again sub-Saharan West Africa. He didn't go back to the landmass of Morocco. He went back to sub-Saharan West Africa, not too far from home. Now y'all tell me the Fulani, right, are some pale white-skinned Africans. Y'all tell me that. Or is this why it says it's hard to tell what shade of color makes a free white person? This is exactly what it's talking about. You could be blue black and still be white. Legally. Legally. For instance, we got my man Mustafa Hefney, right? This is my dude right here, Mustafa Hefney, right? Now, he looked like he could be I could see him in anybody's cookout, and that's family. You know what I'm saying? That he looks like a typical African American, right? Like straight from here. Son is Egyptian. Is Egyptian. And so he's been suing the federal government for decades because when he came here, and eventually, bottom line is when he came here, he's been wanting to identify himself as black. He came over here, dealt with the conscious community, got in tune with it, you know what I'm saying? He wanted to start calling himself Nubian, etc. He wanted to identify as black on paperwork. The federal government said, no, you're not allowed to do such because you're an Egyptian, you have Egyptian nationality. You're an Egyptian national. You cannot legally classify yourself as a black and be an Egyptian national. You are of North African. You are free. You are a free inhabitant of Africa. You cannot denote yourself as an enslaved one. Does that make sense? They told him the A.D.O.S thing. Like, no, you can't come here calling yourself that. You ain't one of them. They said, you got to classify yourself as white. Now, does my man look phenotypically white to you? Not to me. Like I said, he looked like family. He could be my uncle. Hell, he could be my older brother, for real. I'm just saying, this man right here is legally white, fighting against the classification. Now, his descendants have the ability to become. I don't know if he's a citizen. If he's a citizen, his descendants here have the ability to become natural born citizens. Now it's going to get real interesting for him, right? Because I want to see what happens in 2020, because on the census they're playing with it, right? He might be allowed to call himself black and from North Africa. That's going to be a real interesting thing. But it ain't going to change the law in the sense to where the free inhabitants of North Africa descend from. It ain't going to change that concept at all. Like, so just like I said, black racial groups, right, of Africa, that's black. For instance, you might be able to say that you're Egyptian and black now. But legally, that's going to put you amongst the enslaved descendants of Africa. Not the free inhabitants. And again, you're like, oh, people are like, oh, but I do descend from the enslaved. No. Not at all. Not at all. You descend from people who had names, people who had nationalities and tribal names, languages and cultures. You descend from that. You descend from a people who came before slavery. You descend from people who had names. They didn't call themselves black in Africa. They're calling themselves black now in Africa because of us. You know how sad that is? Go to Africa and tell them, like, oh, what tribe are you from? I'm black. They'll laugh at you. What tribe is that? What nation is that? Where y'all at? Black? The first thing they tell you in Africa, start identifying with your names. Be proud of where you come from specifically. Start repping that if you can. Don't just learn some language, learn your language. There is no conglomerate of black in Africa. It's not like that. It's a conglomeration of nations and tribes. So I'm saying, and I'm gonna leave it right here. As an Asiatic descendant of slaves in this country, I rock with that A.D.O.S. And with that A.D.O.S, I'm saying we do what Prophet Noble taught, right? Which is the concept of identifying with the government of this country with your national descent. Like everyone else, like again, so Jewish Americans, Greek Americans, Italian Americans, Irish Americans. Again, let's talk about the Irish Americans real quick, and the Jewish Americans, right? They were not always considered white in this country. Okay. Now we got Irish people. Okay, we just Obama was Irish and black. He was a president. Kennedy was an Irish president. We're about to see Biden run. We're about to see Elizabeth Warren run. We're about to see Beto O'Rourke's in there. You know what I'm saying? All kind of Irish people running for president right now. And they weren't legally considered white people before. Like I said, go peep that book, How the Irish Became White. They were not always legally white in this country. But again, just like my man Mustafa Hefting's legally white, just like my man Barack Obama is legally a natural born citizen as a white person, right? Y'all, we got to figure out how are we going to identify ourselves, right? Because like I said, in this country, like, so when people came through Ellis Island in this country, they had to identify, check this out, I come from this nation of origin. Boom, 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 boom. On naturalization paperwork, you have to identify where you come from, who you come from. Saying that you black literally says that you have no nation of origin. None whatsoever. And that's not true. We come from people. We came from people before slavery. Like my man Abraham Rahman, right? Like Abdul. My man. I'm gonna go back this way. My man's knew where he came from. And just like, and was not treated like not like a slave African, even though he was enslaved. Didn't look no different from the cats he was enslaved with. He just think he was off that Kuta Kinte stuff. I'm not forgetting the name, fam. That's not happening. I come from these people. And then understood the power of the name of like the Moroccan Empire was good. Like, first of all, he knew who they were as a Fulani. As a Fulani Muslim, he knew who the Moors were. Right? And so he understood, like, okay, being with the group that I'm with now is doing me no good. So if you're saying being with this group over here gets me back home, amongst other people who look just like me, well, let me do that one. Let me do that one. You know what I'm saying? Why not? He rode that all the way back to Africa, all the way back home. He died back home on the continent, not on some plantation over here. And he died. He came from sub-Saharan West Africa. In sub-Saharan West Africa, he died in sub-Saharan West Africa. He didn't say he understood. You know what? As someone who just came over here from over, like, I have a history before being a slave. Let me go back to that. Here's my issue with A.D.O.S. A.D.O.S. doesn't have you go back to anything. A.D.O.S. has you start off with slavery. And then as you start off with slavery and not connecting to the other people who went through it. Like that's some off-putting stuff to me. I'm definitely going to be touching on this more, and I'm definitely going to be touching on the Asiatic descent of slavery, A.D.O.S. concept, because that's going to be my calendar, all this whole stuff, right? And happy holiday to all the Muslims around the world. I appreciate y'all for spending some time with me. I appreciate you for tuning in. I appreciate any critique that you have to give me below. I mean, for real. Any critique you have, give it to me in the comment section below, and I will take it to heart, and I will address it for as best I can. But first and foremost, I support us getting together as a people who are descendants of the slave trade, people who went through that, right? I support this conversation of what do we call ourselves? How should we converse with each other? How should we connect? I'm not saying that there's one name we have to agree under. I'm not saying anyone has to agree to being a Moor. Anyone has to agree to being Asiatic. Anyone has to agree to being Canaan. None of that type of stuff. I'm pointing out stuff I'm pointing out concepts that work. For me, the name Moor works. For me, the name Canaanite and Asiatic work. For me, Moorish American works. No issue with that, right? My Israelite homies, right? They might call themselves something different. I'm cool with that. I ain't got no issue with that. If you're talking about like this is where I come from before slavery, I'm so with that. If you're talking about that, I'm listening with both ears. If you're saying like I started at slavery, deaf ears all day, all day. Like my father told me when I was younger, right, that we were the Ethiopians in the Bible. Like that was big for him because he was seeing people who was talking about their cultures and their histories and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? And coming from slavery and from the South and whatnot, he was like, nah, man, go people says the Ethiopians in the Bible because, like, you know what I'm saying, that connects us to something, right? That connects us to something. I had to watch Roots every year. I had to watch Shaka Zulu every year, you know what I'm saying? I had to understand certain aspects of things, you know what I'm saying? And when I was able to apply that concept, like, okay, I do descend from something before slavery. That was a powerful thing for me because for the longest I didn't have that. And my pop at least saw enough to be like, you know what, kid, in this world that you live in, you need to be able to connect to something like that. And I know that it was tough for me to grow up in a world where I couldn't connect to that. So bam, here's this, and try to build upon that. With my sister's son, with his grandson, we try to keep that going. We failed miserably in a lot of ways, let me tell you, but we at least try to keep it going. I remember sitting down having a conversation with my nephew, right? My father, right? I only bought, like, from my nephew's birthdays, I only ever bought him books, ever. And I said, one year he was like, "Why you keep buying me books, Uncle?" And I was, man, check this out, man. With his grandfather in the room, right? Kept it 100 with him. I was like, check this out. It used to be illegal for us to read in this country. We were able to be kept enslaved because we couldn't read in this country. Like, that's a big deal. Like, so I was like, and my nephew didn't like reading at all. He couldn't stand it. He didn't seem used to it. I was like, look, fam, like, you being in control of the information you digest is important. It keeps you free mentally, if nothing else, and that could keep you free physically. My pops put his 2 cents on it because my nephew was trying to like, nah, I'm not trying to hear all that, right? My pops was like, nah, you better listen to me, Uncle, real quick, because you're not just saying no to him, you're saying no to me, you're saying no to my father, you're saying no to his father. Because when your uncle says we couldn't read, he's saying about all them. He's talking about all them. Talking about our whole line going back to that. He's saying they couldn't read. Therefore, you should read for them. I turned around, I was like, yup. Straight up and down. Like, if they were sitting right here in this room, would they be agreeing with me, young man, or would they be agreeing with you? And so when I read, and I took the advice of my father to connect to something, I found out, you know what, we do come from something before slavery. And I proudly connected that. I'm proudly African, 100%. 100%. And I proudly descend from the free inhabitants of Africa, people who have a history before slavery. Proudly. And with that, family, I got to stop this here because otherwise I'm just going to go on forever and ever. But real talk, I say peace and love, family. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good, holy day. Peace.